Welcome back to Beat, Feet, and Retreat Military History. Sorry I've not posted in a while. I went and graduated, so I now have my Bachelor's of Science in Modern European History with a minor in Finance. So what that means for all of my viewers here is that I'm going to have more time to dedicate towards this channel and my other platforms. But moving on into the contents of this video, we have something special for you today. We are going to be reviewing Hacksaw Ridge. Now, I think this movie is absolute dog shit. It's probably my least favorite war movie. Honestly, it's probably one of my least favorite movies, period. I have some major issues with it, which we're going to get into, but most of all, I think this movie does a complete disservice to Desmond Doss and his actions that led to his receiving the Medal of Honor. We're going to get into that. We're going to go into some of the movie-making aspects of this and heavily into the history aspect. So all that and this. So right off the bat, one of the issues I have is that the pyrotechnics seem to be overdone. Hand grenades and artillery shells don't really, explode in a ball of fire. It's more of a poof of dust, and take that from someone who has not been in combat, but there's a little bit too much fire in this intro scene here.
You're the belt man.
Desmond, yes ma'am.
Well, Desmond, we can't take your blood 2 days in a row.
That's good. I came to get mine back.
Yeah, so I think their relationship and everything is good in this, but and I think Andrew Garfield's a good actor. I'm just not sold on his Desmond Doss accent. If you look at if you look at Desmond Doss, he did a lot of interviews in the late 50s, early 60s, and you can get a really good sense of the way he talked and his mannerisms. And he also did the older interviews. At the end of this movie, there's the clip where he's talking about his experiences, and he had a very like Southern accent, like Andrew Garfield does. Kind of that low drawl, which I appreciate that he's trying to do an accent at all. But like Desmond Doss, talked out of his nose, and I don't think that Andrew Garfield's necessarily capturing that. And I think in a film about a Medal of Honor recipient, the actors should do everything they should do to mold themselves into that character. And it seems like they're kind of casting him more as a heartthrob. I mean, he kind of looks like Desmond Doss, but not really. We'll put up a picture somewhere below here, and you can see that they're. I think Andrew Garfield's a little too pretty to play Desmond Doss. Desmond picks up a feather, looks up at the sky, starts whistling at the birds. I guess we're just establishing here that he loves nature. That's sick. I'm a fan of this scene. This is probably my favorite scene. Kisses Shoddy. She wasn't expecting it. Had consent first, though. Slaps him. Oh.
I'm sorry, I didn't think you'd mind.
I'm sorry, I didn't think you'd mind.
You didn't ask.
You didn't ask.
I thought you might have liked it.
Well, I might have if you'd asked. You coming?
That car again. Well done, Mel Gibson. That's the best scene of this whole movie.
Why didn't you say nothing to us?
Because he would have tried and talked me out of it, and I know what I'm doing is right. So
I'm going to pause it right here. This is the conversation that's as old as time. The father saying to his son, I've gone off to war. I've experienced this. What are you doing? I don't want you to go through what I went through, type of thing. And this is the same thing that happened with my grandfather, who came back from the Second World War, also fighting the Pacific, but he was with the 4th Marines on a different set of islands than Desmond Doss was. And he never drank, never swore. And then he came back from the war, right? Had my dad, and then my uncle. So so my uncle, when he gets older, he's like 18, 19. Dad, I joined the Marines, you know, so excited, you know, wanted to share with his father, you know, like, you were a Marine, now I'm a Marine. And my grandpa never swore, never drank, said, what the fuck did you just do? You know, like, why would you do this? You're an idiot. And it was just completely not the reaction my uncle was having. And it's because he fought the Japanese. He had nightmares, you know, 20, 30 years after, you know, his experiences in the Second World War, from fighting the Japanese. They were just probably one of the worst enemies that any U.S. serviceman has ever had to fight, and probably one of the worst enemies in the history of human conflict.
I just hope that when our Hal got shot, it's through the front of his jacket. Artie got hit in the back. It blew most of his guts and intestines out his front, awful everywhere. Now,
this is where he kind of talks about how, like, his buddy got shot in the back and then it wrecked his uniform. I really don't think a veteran of the Argonne is going to be worried about the presentation of his uniform. Like, I get that he's trying to make a point to his son, but it just kind of seems like a weird, like, Hollywood writer thing, plot kind of device that came out.
I love you.
So they just passed under the sign going to Fort Jackson. Would you be wearing your military uniform too basic? You know, I kind of thought you showed up as a civilian and then, like, at basic you went through the militarization process. But this movie has them showing up in their military uniforms already, which does not make a lot of sense.
Call him teach. No one understands a word he says.
That's because no one else here can read.
No one else here can read. The U.S. military is one of the most literate armies in history at this point. That's pretty false.
That's Tex Lewis over there. Thinks he's some kind of cowboy.
So this is the most generic soldiers getting to meet each other scene I've ever seen in my life.
And Vito Vernelli. Now, he may be small, but he is a bulldog.
Hey, how you doing? Desmond.
Vito, he's a bulldog. What does that even mean? See, this is just not how men talk to each other. This is not how soldiers banter with each other. This is not how they talk to each other in the 1940s. It's just lazy writers, just lazy Hollywood writers. There is nothing redeeming about this scene. Why don't you put your money where your mouth is? They're literally, these are just all tropes of people, right? You know, you have the Italian guy, Vinny, he's a bulldog, right? You got Tex with the lasso over in the corner. You got the hard-ass guy throwing a knife at the floor. Like, this scene could just be so much better done. Give it to Steven Spielberg or Tom Hanks. Just take this script and just give it to Steven Spielberg. That's all I gotta say. You know, I should just end the video here. So the first time I watched this was like, the first time I watched it was when it came out in theaters, but then in preparation for this video, I watched it another time, and it actually surprised me because I was trying to figure out, like, what type of Marine uniforms these were, because going into this, I forgot that Desmond Doss was an Army medic and, you know, not a naval corpsman, so I'm kind of like Vince Vaughn here is obviously wearing an Army uniform. He's got the blue infantry cord on his piss cutter. So just a little note on the uniforms. And this is also the first time you see the 77th Infantry patch. Desmond Doss's unit that he got the Medal of Honor. The unit he was with when he got the Medal of Honor. It has the blue box with the Statue of Liberty in gold. That's the 77th Infantry.
I'm Polish.
Wrong. I believe you must have Cherokee or Shawnee blood in you.
No, sir.
Are you contradicting me? You wagon-burning son of a bitch!
No, Sergeant!
Let me see your Indian war cry, son!
So Vince Vaughn's funny at parts in this. Give me your Indian war cry, son.
What is your animal spirit? Are you a chipmunk?
No, Sergeant!
Are you a dancing reindeer?
No, Sergeant!
Are you contradicting me?
No, Sergeant!
Good. Then I shall henceforth call you Chief. as a sign of great respect to your people. Are you grinning at me, boy, or is that your natural state?
Sergeant.
That's what I wanted to talk about here. So, the eyes. So you watch all the actors leading up to Desmond Doss. They have pretty good military bearing, right? They're looking straight forward when they're getting dressed down by the sergeant. And then, you know, Vince Vaughn works his way over to Desmond Doss, who is looking, you know, like laughing, like looking at the situation going down the formation from him. And Andrew Garfield has absolutely no military bearing. He's looking like, while he's getting dressed down, he's looking around, looking at his feet, the eye movement. Like if you were not looking straight forward, this drill sergeant would be tearing you a new asshole. And they kind of like, they go easy on him in this scene because they're like getting ready for like the whole like, oh, I won't touch a weapon. So then Vince Vaughn can be like extra angry. And I don't know, I just feel like they should have worked on Andrew Garfield's military bearing because everyone else seems to have it, but, you know, Garfield does not.
I believe any man who takes such pride in his natural naked state will surely enjoy the brisk of the outdoors. Now move your private parts.
Now move your private parts. Exhibit 1 of lazy riding. Enough said.
Yeah, move it, I want to see some fire.
And I just don't, Vince Vaughn ain't a runner. I just, sorry, I'm really like picking apart these actors here, but I think they just could have cast this movie so much better. And it would have made a difference.
Runs around the tree, goes back into the hole.
So I guess they could learn to tie knots. I don't know why they would be teaching them to tie bowline knots. I guess a bowline knot could be useful in non-naval scenarios.
What do we got here, Doss? One for each titty.
This sling that Desmond Doss makes in real life, you know, like Vince Vaughn here makes fun of him because it's like, it looks like a brassiere, but it's actually a seat. I don't know if it's a Swiss seat, but it's a seat, some type of knotted seat. Desmond Doss actually learned how to do that from saving flood victims in his home state.
This is a personal gift from the United States government to each and every one of you.
And this is the, you know, they're getting the M1 Garand right now. I feel like you'd have a classroom setting first where they're going over diagrams of how to operate the M1 Garand. They wouldn't just say, hey, you know, go up to the rifle rack, grab your M1 Garand, you know, here we go type thing. You know, and a lot of this is very nitpicky stuff, but this is history, and you know, you need to approach it with a certain amount of, you know, brevity, you know, like respect, because these things actually happen. These men actually live these events, you know. It's up to the director to, you know, I know he's trying to sell tickets while also dealing with, you know, history being interesting, but one of the things I found through history research is that history is always stranger than fiction, and I wish directors understood that. Just tell it how it is. Tell exactly how it happened. See, the whole talking back, he's looking down at his feet, shaking his head after he just had an interaction with his DI. That would not happen. This drill sergeant would have killed him, especially in the 40s. They're preparing these men to fight the Japanese. They're not going to let all this individualistic acting happen. You know, it's just not, it's not how people functioned in the 40s. So, we've gotten to Okinawa now. My issue is that Desmond Doss had already been in 2 campaigns on 2 different islands before this. And here we have them showing up, and the movie will have you believe that it's directly after basic training, right? So they just went directly to Okinawa. No, Desmond Doss was decorated prior to, he got 2 Bronze Stars for his actions in the Philippines, and I know he got 1 Bronze Star for his actions on Guam, and I believe he also got a Bronze Star in the Philippines as well. Do not quote me on that though. I know about the Guam one, but this movie just ignores, like, where, you know, Dawes was getting a reputation before this as, you know, a valiant combat medic, and I think the whole movie does his whole story a gross injustice by not including the whole story, right? This is only like, I mean, probably like 5% of the story, right? You just have his Medal of Honor action, but no, he was a soldier that was in for the duration of the war. It did not just all of a sudden happen at the end of the war, you know, 1945, you know, the Battle of Okinawa. So, come on, Mel. Come on. Come on, Mel. You get some good, you know, facial expressions here of men that have gone through combat, so they're shell shocked, you know, have PTSD. I like that you can see some like the physical reactions. You know, if you look at some of the, you know, footage from the teens of the soldiers who came back from World War I, you see a lot of shaking. You know, they have a neuromuscular disorder that's from continued shelling, continued combat, continued stress. And I like that this movie, you see that. You see the, you know, the 2,000-yard stare. You see the physical reaction to combat stress. So I think that's a good aspect of this movie, that it shows that. So this is the first time that we see Hacksaw Ridge, also known as the Maeda Escarpment. So all the veterans seem to refer to it not as Hacksaw Ridge, but as the escarpment. And this escarpment is way too big. They have it at like 150 feet, 100 feet here, like a cliff face. You go and look, we'll put up a picture of it, but if you look at the actual Maeda Escarpment, it was called the Maeda Escarpment, it's like 20 feet tall, 25 feet tall. It was not as drastic as depicted in this film. So the 77th Division is climbing up the net and going to fight in the Maeda Escarpment, or Hacksaw Ridge. So in the next video, we're going to talk about the actual battle of Hacksaw Ridge in the context of this film. And hopefully, you know, Mel Gibson has some better scenes in the second part of this movie. So all of that in the next part.